You ever get proposed to by the love of your life, only to realize seconds later it was all a sick joke? I did. And it didn't just break my heart. It shattered my sense of self-worth in front of hundreds of strangers. I'm Ava. I'm 26. I work in marketing, live in Chicago, and until 3 months ago I was stupidly blindly in love with a man named Tyler. He's 29, works in event planning, I know, ironic. And he made me believe we were building something real. Until he destroyed it in one of the most humiliating ways imaginable. We were together for 2 years. Tyler was charming, funny, and effortlessly confident, the kind of guy who could talk his way into any club, get out of any parking ticket, and win over every single one of my friends. First, I thought I'd won the lottery. He was spontaneous, always planning little adventures for us. Candlelit rooftops, surprise weekend getaways. It felt like something out of a rom-com. But about 6 months ago something shifted. He started making jokes at my expense in front of his friends. Little things at first mocking my baby voice when I was excited, pretending to imitate my laugh. Everyone would laugh along. I laughed too, until it started to sting. Then came the incident. It was a Saturday in March. Tyler told me we were going to Millennium Park to meet his cousin visiting from out of town. Casual, right? But when we got there something felt off. There was a small crowd gathered. A street musician playing a soft tune. And then Tyler got down on one knee. Time stopped. People gasped. A woman squealed and clapped. And me? I started crying. Not from sadness but joy. It was happening. He was proposing. I was going to marry him. The man I loved. Except, he wasn't. As I stared at him, blinking back tears, Tyler looked up at me with that trademark smirk of his. And said loud enough for the crowd to hear. Wow, babe, you really thought I'd propose here? In front of this tacky fountain. The crowd laughed. He stood up, brushed off his jeans and said, Relax, it was a joke. Lighten up. People chuckled awkwardly. Some turned away, embarrassed for me. One teenager literally filmed the whole thing and muttered, Damn, that's cold. I don't remember much after that. I remember the sound of my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. I remember my hands trembling. I remember walking away and not looking back, not even when he called my name. I went home and didn't leave my apartment for days. I shut off my phone. I cried until my eyes swelled shut. Every single memory we shared rewrote itself in my mind like a cruel parody. That night in New York where he said, I can see forever with you. That time he held me while I had the flu and said he'd never leave me. Lies. All of it. I heard from mutual friends that he was just messing around and didn't mean to hurt me. One even told me, You know how Tyler is a showman. A showman. He turned my love into a punchline. 3 months passed. I started going to therapy. I cut off anyone who made excuses for him. I took up boxing. It helped punching things. Reclaiming my body. My strength. My voice. Then last week I got a letter. An actual handwritten letter in the mail. The envelope was creased, like it had been carried around in someone's jacket pocket for a while. The handwriting? Tyler's. I stared at it for hours before opening it. Inside was a 5-page letter. Apologizing. Rambling. He said he never meant to hurt me. That he didn't realize how cruel it would feel. That he misses me every day. That he thinks about proposing for real. He included a Polaroid of us from last summer wearing his hoodie, both of us laughing. On the back he wrote, This was real. Please don't forget that. I sat there, the letter trembling in my hands. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. I wanted to laugh at the sheer nerve. But more than anything I wanted to understand. Why? Why would someone fake a proposal? Why would someone weaponize love like that? I wasn't planning to respond, until I bumped into someone who changed everything. Her name was Elise. A barista at my regular coffee shop. We'd spoken a few times casually, but that day she noticed my mood and asked if I was okay. I blurted everything out. The fake proposal. The letter. Tyler. Her expression changed. She looked concerned. Then she said something that hit me like a freight train. You were dating Tyler McAllister? He used to come in here with another girl. Like every Thursday morning. They always sat at the back. I thought she was his girlfriend. I blinked. What did she look like? She described a woman named Marissa. Blonde. stylish, confident. Not me. That's when it clicked. The letter wasn't about me. It was about him. His guilt. His ego. Maybe even his loneliness now that Marissa was gone. He didn't miss me. He missed the version of me who hadn't yet seen through him. I folded the letter, shoved it into the back of my closet, and went back to boxing class. That night I hit harder than I ever had. Because I finally understood. Closure doesn't come from an apology. It comes from realizing you deserve so much better than someone who thinks your love is a stage prop in his little drama. You think the story ends when the letter goes in the closet, right? Like I walk off into the sunset, stronger, wiser, healed. But healing doesn't follow a clean, straight line. Because 2 days after Elise told me about Marissa, the mystery woman Tyler had apparently been seeing on the side, I got another message. This time through Instagram. It was a voice memo. From someone I didn't recognize. Her name? Marissa. Yep, that Marissa. Hi, she said, her voice quiet but deliberate. I know this is weird, and maybe you don't want to hear from me, but I found you through mutual tags. Think we should talk. I think Tyler's been playing both of us. I just found out about the proposal thing. I'm so sorry. I froze. My mouth literally went dry. It was like all the air had been sucked out of the room. First, I didn't answer. I wasn't sure I wanted to. Part of me wanted to throw my phone across the room. The other part? The part that still needed answers? She typed again. Please. I'm not reaching out for drama. I just need to understand what happened. He told me you were obsessed with him. That you faked a pregnancy. That you showed up to his work screaming. My blood ran cold. I FaceTimed her. I don't know what possessed me, but within seconds we were talking face to face. And honestly, she was nothing like I expected. Marissa wasn't the icy blonde villain my insecure brain had invented. She looked exhausted, like someone who'd spent months trying to untangle a web of lies. And as we talked piece by piece, the truth came into focus. Tyler had been dating us both serious life for over a year. He told Marissa I was just a friend from college who got too attached. That I'd made up stories. That I was mentally unstable. He even showed her screenshots, fake ones, apparently off desperate messages I'd sent him after the proposal. He said I'd ruined his life. She believed him. Until recently. What changed? Apparently, she'd caught him texting someone else. A third woman. And when she confronted him, he called her crazy too. That was when she started to question everything. I know you probably hate me, she said, voice breaking a little. But I'm sorry. I truly didn't know. If I had, I never would have let it go on. I didn't hate her. I pitted both of us. And something else happened during that call, something I didn't expect. I started to feel free. Like I wasn't crazy. Like I wasn't alone. Marissa and I ended up meeting for coffee. Weird. Yes. But healing? Absolutely. We compared timelines, photos, messages. It was almost surreal seeing all the lies laid out like puzzle pieces on the table between us. She told me one story I'll never forget. Apparently, a few months before the fake proposal, Tyler had talked about doing something dramatic to end things with me because I was too clingy. He joked about faking a proposal just to see her cry. Her words, not mine. She thought he was kidding. He wasn't. That night I sat on my balcony, wrapped in a blanket, reading Tyler's letter again, but this time through a new lens. His remorse wasn't about me. It was about the control he lost. The image he couldn't maintain. The version of himself that was slipping through everyone's fingers. And suddenly I wasn't heartbroken anymore. I was furious. Not in a vengeful soap opera way, but in the kind of way that makes you want to stand up and scream for every girl who's ever been lied to, manipulated, shamed, or silenced. So I wrote something. A post. A long one. I put it on Medium and shared it anonymously. No names. No locations. Just the truth. The story of a woman who was used as a stage prop. Who had her heart broken for laughs. Who found strength in unexpected place in therapy. In boxing gloves. In another woman's eyes. It went viral. Within days it had over 300,000 reads. Thousands of comments. Women sharing similar stories. Men expressing shame and horror over their past behavior. People reaching out with empathy, solidarity, anger, and hope. It was overwhelming, but in the best possible way. And then of course Tyler found it. I knew because he texted me the following. "So this is how you want to play it?" Followed by, "You always needed attention. Guess you finally got it." That was the moment I knew I'd won. Not in a petty, "look who's crying now" kind of way, but in the deepest, most soul-satisfying way. I was no longer afraid of him. He couldn't twist the narrative anymore. He couldn't make me doubt myself. Couldn't use my love against me. Couldn't gaslight me into thinking I was overreacting. He had no more power. And that was everything. About a week later, I got another message, this time from an old college friend of his. Someone I hadn't spoken to in years. He said, "I read your post. Think you should know. This isn't the first time Tyler's done something like this." Apparently, in college, Tyler had once staged a fake breakup at a party, crying, shouting, accusing his then-girlfriend of cheating just to embarrass her after she tried to leave him. She dropped out 2 months later. Tyler told everyone she had mental health issues. The pattern was undeniable. But here's the twist. The post, the pain, the healing. It all led to something I never expected. People started asking me to speak. First on podcasts, then in person. Women's circles. Mental health panels. One day, a small publication asked to interview me. I said yes. I wasn't just Ava who got proposed to as a joke anymore. I was Ava who found her voice. Ava who wrote her We're Free. Ava who helped others heal. It's wild how something that once crushed me became the very thing that lifted me. I won't lie, there are still days when I hear laughter in public and flinch. When I see a man kneel down and I have to look away. When I doubt myself even now. But those moments pass faster. They don't haunt me. They remind me how far I've come. And then, because life has a sense of irony, Tyler showed up. In person. 3 weeks ago. I was at a fundraiser event in the city, doing a panel on emotional abuse and manipulation in relationships. He came up to me afterward, tried to smile, said he'd seen the whole movement, and that he was proud of me. I asked him, "Proud of what?" "That I survived you." He didn't respond. I walked away. That was the last time I saw him. And the first time I truly felt peace. Because that's the thing about heartbreak. It doesn't end with revenge. Or closure. Or even an apology. It ends when you decide it does. When you stop carrying their version of the story and start writing your own. And mine is just beginning. A month after I saw Tyler at the fundraiser, something unexpected happened. Something that tested the strength I thought I'd built. My mom called. Now, you should know me, Mom, and I have always had a complicated relationship. She's a pragmatic woman. Stoic. Not the hugging, talk it out type. When the proposal fiasco happened, she didn't rush over to comfort me or offer to slash Tyler's tires. Instead, she said something I'll never forget. "Well, at least now you know who he really is." Cold? Maybe. But she wasn't wrong. Still, she was never one to dwell. So when she called this time and said, "I ran into someone you might want to know about," my stomach dropped. I knew before she said the name. "Tyler," she said. "He came into my office. For a job interview." I blinked. "What? Wait, what?" Apparently he's switching careers. Said he's trying to work on himself. I almost laughed. My mom works in HR at a medium-sized nonprofit that specializes in domestic abuse prevention. Ironic, right? "I didn't recognize him at first," she continued. "He looked thinner, different, nervous." I asked what she did. "I rejected him. A beat. But I didn't tell him it was because of you. Just said we had stronger candidates." For the first time in a long time, I felt protected by her. And it shook me. Because for years I'd quietly resented how emotionally unavailable she could be. How she told me when I was 15 and sobbing over a high school breakup, "You don't get to fall apart every time someone doesn't love you the way you want." But in that moment, with Tyler unknowingly walking into her office, and her choosing silence over spectacle, I realized that maybe she was protecting me all along. In her own way. It made me think a lot about how women pass down emotional survival skills. How we learn to mask pain. To move on before we're ready. To minimize, shrink, absorb. I didn't want to do that anymore. That weekend I met with Marissa again. She'd started therapy too. We talked about starting a project together, something small. Maybe a blog or a support group for women who'd experienced emotional manipulation and public humiliation. It wasn't just about relationships. It was about stories, about voice, about being seen. We called it Stage Exit. Our mission: help women walk off stages they were never meant to perform on. Our first post? My story. The real one. Not anonymous this time. Name, photo, all of it. Scary? Yes. Liberating? Absolutely. It sparked a bigger wave than the first article. Emails poured in. DMs. Women saying things like, "You wrote the thing I never had words for." Or, "This gave me the courage to finally leave him." And then came Hannah. She was 19. A freshman at a college in upstate New York. She emailed us at 2 a.m. with a simple subject line: "I think he's doing it to me too." She described her boyfriend Jackie as charming, funny, intense. But he mocked her in front of friends. Told her she was too sensitive when she cried. Once pretended to propose in their dorm lobby, then screamed CK and ran off laughing. Her friend said he was just kidding, that she needed to toughen up. Reading her words was like staring into a time machine. We Zoomed with her the next day. She was shaking. She wore a hoodie 3 sizes too big, hair in a messy bun, eyes ringed with fatigue. "I thought I was crazy," she whispered. "You're not," I said. "You're just in a bad script. And you can walk off the stage whenever you want." She cried. We kept in touch. She eventually left him, started therapy, joined our writing team. And in that ripple effect from Tyler to me, from me to Marissa, from us to Hannah, I saw what real power looked like. Not revenge, not fame, but reclamation. Months passed. Stage Exit grew faster than we expected. We were featured in a few feminist publications. Even got invited to speak at a university panel titled, "When Love Becomes Performance: The Emotional Cost of Public Shaming in Relationships." It was surreal. Then one day I got an email from a production company. They were working on a documentary about emotional abuse in the age of social media. They wanted to interview me, and maybe if I was open to recreate part of my story. I hesitated. I'd spent so long pulling myself off that stage. Did I really want to go back on? But something told me this was different. This time I controlled the narrative. So I said yes. The interview was intense. Hours of talking. Raw, vulnerable footage. They asked about the moment Tyler knelt down. About the crowd. The laughter. The silence afterward. Then they asked me something I hadn't been prepared for. If you could speak to Tyler now, with everything you know and everything you've become, what would you say to him? I thought for a long time. Then said, I wouldn't say anything to him. I'd speak to the version of me who stood frozen in front of that fountain thinking she was being loved, when she was being set up. I'd tell her, you are not small. You are not weak. You are not a joke. Walk away. You don't need a stage. You don't need an audience. You just need yourself. They used that as the closing line of the trailer. When it aired on YouTube, it got over 1 million views in a week. And that's when I got the final letter from Tyler. Typed. Cold. No handwriting this time. Like he'd finally run out of sincerity. It said, I watched the documentary. I never realized how much I hurt you. I thought it was just a joke. I thought you'd laugh eventually. But I see now that I was selfish. You don't have to forgive me. I just wanted you to know I'm trying to be better. No, please come back. No Polaroid. Just that. And you know what? I believed him. Not because I trusted him, but because I finally understood that his growth wasn't my responsibility to manage or validate. I didn't reply. Instead, I printed the letter and taped it inside the cover of my first published essay collection coming out next year, titled The Exit Wound: Stories of Love, Shame, and the Women Who Survived Them. Full circle. But not full stop. Because stories like mine are still happening. Right now. In plazas and dorm rooms and birthday parties and TikTok proposals gone wrong. And women are still being told they're too emotional, too sensitive, too dramatic. To them I say, you're not too much. They were never enough. A year passed. It's strange how much can change in 12 months, how healing can creep in quietly, while you're busy building something, creating, connecting. Stage Exit grew from a blog to a global movement. We partnered with organizations, held community writing workshops, spoke at high schools and universities. We even built an anonymous submission portal where survivors could safely share their stories. That space became sacred. One night, I stayed up until 3 a.m. reading over 30 new submissions. One stood out. It was from a woman in her late 30s who described being married to a man who publicly proposed in front of her dying father, only to confess months later that it was for show. She signed the piece, still trying to breathe. Her story undid me. Because while mine ended with a breakup and a letter, hers was still happening. Her life hadn't moved on. She was stuck, invisible, trapped. And it hit me his wasn't just about breakups and betrayal anymore. It was about silencing. About how easily people, especially women, get rewritten, edited, erased. After that night, we launched a campaign called Reclaim the Mic, a storytelling series that gave survivors a literal stage but on their terms. No humiliation. No spectacle. Just raw, real truth. The very first event was held at a small black box theater in Chicago. It sold out in less than 48 hours. When I stepped on stage that night holding the mic under the soft golden lights, facing an audience filled with strangers and survivors, I wasn't nervous. I was ready. I shared a new version of my story, one not rooted in shame or rage but in growth. I talked about the moment I realized forgiveness isn't about letting someone back in. It's about setting yourself free from the cage they built around your memory. I talked about the letter, the silence after. And I ended with this. I used to think being loved meant being chosen. Now I know it means being seen. And I will never let anyone make me invisible again. Standing ovation. I cried. Not because I was sad, but because I finally believed myself. A week after the event, I received a package. No return address. Inside was a worn-out composition notebook. On the first page, to Ava. I hope this helps you understand. I flipped through it. It was Tyler's journal. Every page was filled with erratic thoughts. Guilt. Defensiveness. Childhood stories. Pain he'd never processed. His mom leaving when he was 8. His father's coldness. A cycle of cruelty he'd never named until now. There was a page titled, Why I Did It. And it read, I needed to control something. She was too perfect. Too kind. I didn't know how to love without hurting. Making her cry made me feel powerful. But afterward I felt small. I've never stopped feeling small. I closed the notebook. My hands shook. Not out of sympathy. Not even rage. But because I finally saw the truth. Hurt people do hurt people. But that doesn't excuse them. I placed the journal in my closet next to the old letter. Artifacts from a version of me I no longer was. Fast forward to now. I'm 30. I live in a new apartment near the lake. My walls are filled with prints by artists I love. I keep fresh flowers on the kitchen counter every week. Something younger me never thought she deserved. I'm in love again. His name is Jonah. He's quiet, kind, steady. The first time he saw me cry, he didn't flinch. Didn't joke. He just sat beside me and listened. On our 4th date, I told him everything. I watched his face carefully, waiting for the smirk, the flinch, the telltale shift. It never came. Instead, he reached across the table, took my hand and said, Thank you for surviving. I think that was the moment I fell for him. It's not perfect. I still have scars. Sometimes when he kneels down to tie his shoe, my body tenses before my brain catches up. But Jonah notices. He never mocks. He just smiles gently and stands again. We've created something new. Not a performance. Not a story for others. But a life. People still ask me if I ever really got closure. It's a funny word, closure. Like you can zip up a chapter of your life and shelve it forever. But trauma doesn't end cleanly. It lingers. It echoes. It demands to be acknowledged over and over in new contexts, new relationships, new versions of you. What I got wasn't closure. What I got was clarity. And that's so much more powerful. Because now when I look back on that day at Millennium Park, on the crowd, the laughter, the moment my heart fell through the floor, I don't feel like a victim. I feel like a witness to the exact moment my real life began. So if you're reading this and you've been humiliated, silenced, made to feel small, let me tell you this. You don't need their apology. You don't need the audience to understand. You don't even need to explain yourself. All you need is you, your voice, your truth, your exit. And when you walk off that stage, head high, heart cracked but open, you will find something waiting. Not revenge, not closure, but freedom.